The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs.
Candlepin Stars and Strikes.
Yeah, come on! Oh, 24! Oh!
From Park Place Lanes in Windham, featuring outstanding Candlepin bowlers from all over New England.
You're going to hear some noise if this is a strike. Got a shot at it. Yes! Got it in a row! Oh, wow!
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Howdy once again, everybody, and welcome to another 2 full hours of Candlepin Bowling here on Stars and Strikes on the Winds. We're so glad you could join us. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. This is semifinal week, and first here on singles, we have Brian McKinley looking for win number 2 in a row, and Tom O'Brien, who's been a fixture on the doubles show this year, making a shot at singles, trying to get to the Tournament of Champions. He's already done it in doubles.
He's like MacArthur. He always says he'll be back, and he seems to pop up and come back. And we talked about Joe Ashline possibly going all the way. That ended last week. Now Brian is going to try to make it 2 in a row and one step closer to that Tournament of Champions.
All right, let's meet our 2 bowlers. First of all, from Nashua, New Hampshire, trying for that second win in a row after rolling a 392 in his victory last week, Brian McKinley.
Okay, Brian comes in averaging 121, high single of 190, high triple 472, and the all-important roll-off score 694.
All right, and of course Brian comes in looking for that second straight win, and he will face our number 2 seed as we get into our top 2 bowlers of this ladder, both from Massachusetts. First of all, from Natick, Mass, Tom O'Brien.
Okay, Tom comes in averaging 129, high single of an even 200, 485 for a high triple, and his roll-off score 697.
Now, we had a winner last week in our bonus ball contest. That means we're back down to $20 this week. We've emptied the big TV, and we hope we have your postcards here, and we'll try and get you a winner a little bit later on. 3 strings of Candlepin Bowling. The winner moves into the finals next week, championship week here on Stars and Strikes, but we've got lots to do before then. We'll be back with the first of 3 strings right after this timeout, don't we? This is week 3, semifinal week of our 4-week series here on Stars and Strikes, and Brian McKinley in that number 3 spot, having beaten Joe Ashline last week, looking for win number 2 in a row. He faces Tom O'Brien this week, and the winner of this match moves into the finals next week against Mike Morgan from Lynn, Mass. And of course, the winner of that match goes into the Tournament of Champions in the spring. So for Brian McKinley, a chance to make it 2 in a row. He's rolled some big numbers here on previous occasions. Last week it was 392, and he'll be looking to knock off Tom O'Brien, who's become a fixture this season on Stars and Strikes doubles.
392, and he did most of that in that second game last week at 160.
Yeah, he had 6 marks in a row over the last 5 boxes of that middle game, and that built a lead that stood up through the rest of the match. Right at the intersection. Fine shot.
Snap that from left to right. Watch the piece of wood snap from the left sidewall to the right. Actually snapped off each other. It's a great shot by Brian.
And a mark to open the match. Slips the fill ball off to the left, though, for 4. Brian is 6-3 in his appearances here, and look out! Oh, it took a while, but he'll take it. He left the 5 and the 10, but with some wood off the left sidewall, he cleared it out.
And again, on the outside, as we would say, and swept everything into the other 5 pins, and finally the result, spare. 2 in a row.
And here's the tall lefty, Tom O'Brien from Natick. Give you an idea of just how successful Tom has been on Stars and Strikes doubles. He appeared on 8 of the first 16 shows we taped. So he's been on Stars and Strikes doubles a total of 8 times, and the last 3 times He finished a run a few weeks ago with Phil Clough. They won 3 straight matches, and Tom and Phil will be back for the doubles tournament of champions in the spring. Oh, I don't know if he wanted that to go down.
Well, he was waving. The pins didn't know if he wanted the wood to move or the pin to fall down. So he's directing traffic, but someone ran the stop sign. 6-pin fell over. Make it a little more difficult. Going to play the wood. That close. I think he wanted to clip that front piece as well.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's got good speed.
Yes! It's a spare! Just the way Tom played it.
Let's check the time limit on that one. Look at this.
It came off the
Just
lane onto the plate. That
You're
made the
absolutely
difference.
right. Of course, the plate where the pin's set is depressed on the lane. It's a little drop off you would never notice in the ball going over it, but it was just enough to gather some speed for that 8-pin. 6 fill on Brian's second spare. 1, 2, 9, 10 left. This is a wood that's looking better by the minute. Looks like the 1, 2, and 10 would go pretty quick. See if he gets the 9.
Yes.
Oh boy, he missed that shot. Actually, it was to the right. He just said that's 3 times.
3 marks in a row.
Tomorrow they'll forget all about that mark.
And then wouldn't you know, right through the middle. So the fills haven't been what Brian has wanted. 4, 6, and 5. And he'll take a 9. 54 through 4. Tom O'Brien steps up now working on a mark. Talking about Tom's success in the doubles show. Of those 8 appearances, he won 6 of them with various partners. And of course, he is already in a position to just sit back and wait for the doubles tournament of champions. Should he win this match and next week, he would become the first bowler to qualify for the tournament of champions in each division.
Very close, just leaving the 4 and 7. There's only a 3 fill on the spare though, and then 8. So he finds himself down by 14 early in the match.
A reminder here on the wins, right after this first show, as Tom O'Brien nails a strike in the 4th. We'll take another look at that one. Right after this hour, stay tuned at 1 o'clock for Stars and Strikes doubles. Semifinal week in our ladies doubles series. 2 hours of Candlepin bowling every Sunday at noon here on the Winds.
1, 3, 6, 10. 4 horsemen to the right for Brian.
.62 Mentioned the scores for this particular series. The roll-off scores were very high, especially when you consider that the finals were held at the Londonderry Bowling Center. The 5th place finisher, John Maffio, from a couple of weeks ago, hit a 689, and there was actually an interesting story about that. John came in a later shift. The finals are held in several different shifts. And when John came into the Londonderry Bowling Center, he saw some of the scores that had already been posted, and he knew that he'd have to have something in the neighborhood of a 690 to get on the show. He said, I almost just saved myself the money and didn't bowl. But he decided to bowl, and he ended up qualifying, although he lost in spite of the fact that he threw a 400 triple 2 weeks ago to Joe Ashline. Tom O'Brien on a strike. Look out! Look out! 6-pin stays.
Well, I like these. I'll take my chances with these kind of shots. 6-pin, couple pieces of wood, half the lane covering. And he gets it. Nice shot, Tom. Spare on strikes. Pulls to within 1 of Brian and can take the lead with this ball. And he does.
Big one.
In a big way.
20 at a time for Tom O'Brien here. Well, it's interesting sometimes the way the breaks of this game turn out. He had that fortunate spare in the second box when got that delayed reaction, converting the 8, 9, 10, and then of course he wound up with a 3 fill on that, and now he comes right back with strike, spare, strike.
Ooh, Brian just sliding by the 4-pin.
$10. A little dry spell for Brian McKinley after opening with 3 straight spares. Oh, there's the strike, though. Kicking out the 7-pin in the corner.
1-2 pocket. 7-pin, last to go down. Well, Tom looking for the double strike.
There are often some great stories that come out of the roll-offs, and many of them we don't have a chance to tell, really, but I'm sure a lot of them we don't even find out about. But there was another great story from this final roll-off about Tom O'Brien, because after 4 games, 5-string roll-off, of course, after 4 games, he was sitting at 520, which was really not anywhere near the money. Finishing in the top 5, which is what you have to do to get on the program. Then he proceeded to go out and throw a 177 in the 5th game of the roll-off, and he wound up as the number 2 seed at 697. Got a tough break on that spare chance, though.
Yeah, I thought he had a shot at making that. Wood spun around, never touched the 7, the 8. Yeah, let's get those right, Dan. 9 or the 10. Seem to be moving down there.
Ooh, he was going for that. Oh, no, that's an illegal pin. You saw that pin go over the 10. That'll be an $8. No contact with a legal pin or piece of wood before the ball left the lane. He was. It almost looked like he was trying to cut it over, although he was probably trying to deflect off the wood.
Ooh, solid 6-pin.
Spare it up in the 8th. Tom with the lead, and he puts a mark up opposite Brian McKinley's strike.
Yeah, Brian looking for the double strike. Has one working in the 8th already. Trailing by 16. Would like to throw a double. Light hit, but watch out. Well,
Nothing fell. Yeah. Thought maybe one of those would go, and then who knows what would have happened.
3, 9, 10.
Got it. Spare on strike. 5th mark of the game. The opening game of this match. Each bowler with 5 marks now. Ryan is back in the pocket, a little light, dropping 6.
2, 4, 7, and 8.
Oh, nice shot. That's a tough shot.
Started with 3 marks, first 3 boxes, and finishes with 3.
At least.
127 and a ball to come.
Goes Brooklyn side this time, and he'll take a 7 for a 134 opening game. Tom O'Brien will have to, well, he won't have to add a mark to maintain his lead, but might have to depending on this fill. Well, now he'll have to. Just 3. That's Tom's second 3 fill on a spare.
That's interesting. He went for the side that had 4 pins.
Dead even through 9. I don't know as we've ever asked Tom how tall he is. He's got to be 6'3", maybe 6'4". But he comes as close as anybody we've seen to being in danger of hitting his head on the telly scores, which you can't see, but they're the computer scoring screens that are normally used here at Park Place Lanes, and Tom comes as close as you'd probably want to come. 126. So Brian McKinley breaks out with an 8 8-pin lead after Game 1. We'll be back. Game 2 is upcoming, along with information on our bonus ball contest right after these words.
Well, there you see it. Those are the 3 qualifiers already qualified for our Tournament of Champions. Paul Berger sitting at the top of that 437, Dave Richards, the 418, and Stu Bergman. And one of these, the bowlers, hope to be number 4. And that will be held in the spring. So those roll-off scores, those are the scores that they hit in their championship win. So very important as far as their seeding goes in the spring.
If I were Paul Berger, I'd be feeling pretty good right now. I mean, you never know, but...
No, he's good at least for number 2.
Yeah, probably. Certainly we've seen larger scores than that here, but...
The score that I think is even more safe, if there is such a thing, is the doubles score.
Yeah.
Of Jackie Ray and Gary Carrington. You're all waiting to hear what it is, aren't you? I can't really remember, but I know it's big.
Sure you can, Dan. Think hard.
Okay, it's around 448. How's that?
That's it. Yep.
Spare up in the first for Tom O'Brien. For a doubles team, that's a big score, 448.
We've actually had 2 400 triples in the doubles format already for the Tournament of Champions qualifiers. Mike Morrill and Jack Quinn threw a 412.
If I remember correctly, that one, the 448 too, Gary Carrington and Jack Ray, it was just another match until that final game. They threw a monster, the final game. Wait a minute, that's coming to me now too. It's, Doug, you got to turn the pages faster than that.
Yeah, this is going to take a little longer. I don't know if I can cover for you this time.
And people screaming at home, they know the answer already. Yeah, 177.
We were talking about the roll-off scores for this series. There was only an 8-pin difference between Tom O'Brien in second spot and John Maffio in 5th. Mike Morgan ran away with it at the top.
Almost looks like they gave Mike Morgan an extra game.
741 Mike had. And ironically, his brother, Tom Morgan, was the alternate. He finished in 6th spot with a 678, just 11 pins out of the money. Yes, Brian McKinley converts the spare. Kind of a finesse shot that time.
I don't know, if my brother was an alternate, I'd have to keep turning around, see who was behind me. Tom wasn't really happy with that ball, but they're still happening for him.
No, he probably wants the head pin to stay up now.
Yeah. The 1, the 4, 7, and the 10.
Perfect.
That's pretty good.
Perfect. Hit the left side of the head pin. Just like that.
Yep. Ball carrying him off the head pin into the 4-7, and there's no way the 10 pin was going to stay with all the lumber in between. Oh, wow. Did you see that? For a second, he had the 1 and the 3.
Tough shot. Oh, yes.
Great shot.
The wood helped. The wood helped, even though it was off to the side. Let's watch it. The wood helped to deflect the ball. Well, he might have made that without the wood. 7 on the spare for McKinley.
Oh, just barely missed cutting the 2-pin. So the lead will swing back to Tom O'Brien, depending on the lead. depending on this last frame.
Well, that doesn't change things too much, although Ryan will have a pin on the deck to work with, but still the 4, 5, 7, and 10, no guarantees on this one.
Big crowd here today. You can only see just a few of them on camera, but multiply that by about 5 times the people standing behind the other cameras.
And Tom O'Brien, when we come back, will try and take the lead in this match as he trails by 1, as you see, but a spare fill to come on Stars and Strikes. Tom O'Brien set to fill that mark in box number 4, which probably will give him the lead again in this match.
I would like to apologize for my secretary for misspelling Brian. People probably picked it up on the screen already. But, you know, you just got to watch him every minute. 2, 4, and 7. Inside.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Great shot.
The wood helped make that shot happen. And Tom is right back into the pocket. This should be strike on spare, and it is. Took a little while, but the 4-pin eventually cooperated. Nice pocket hit in the Brooklyn side for the left-hander, the 1-3. 4 marks in a row, Tom O'Brien. Brian McKinley's got kind of a mess down there. The 1-2, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to take a moment, Dan, to wish a happy birthday to a faithful Stars and Strikes fan, Helga Nelson, down in Holden, Mass. Is going to be 80 years young this Thursday, February the 13th.
She's going to have a great birthday because this is kind of ironic because sometimes we don't tape for weeks. And we're just handed this note. It's from her daughter, I believe, right?
Barbara Gates, yep, from Princeton, Mass, sent us a note about her mom, Helga, and I believe it's Oka, her husband, Oka Nelson. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, but he turned 85 years old last September. They never miss a Stars and Strikes telecast, and we certainly appreciate their loyalty, and we get mail all the time from hearing stories about loyal viewers who never miss the program and make an effort to tape it if they're out and so on, and we really do appreciate it, and that's real nice. So I'm glad we had a chance to wish a happy 80th birthday upcoming later this week to Helga Nelson. Congratulations.
All right.
Tom gave that one a run. Couple of 10 boxes. So his mark streak is finally over.
He's built himself quite a lead, though. At 26, but that's going to diminish somewhat. Another one of those looked like he had 3 or 4 pins on the fill, and then when all is said and done, it's 8.
It seems almost like Brian's ball sometimes slows down so much from the time he releases it until the time it gets to the pins. He doesn't get as much action as you would think he might, and there the wood, clutter of wood on the lane really slowed down his ball, cost him the shot. Well, the lead is 18 right now overall in favor of Tom O'Brien. You see that lower left-hand corner figure.
Brian's opposite of an open frame. Well, Brian will have an open one too, unless he can convert the spread eagle. Look out! Look out! What close. Great effort by Brian McKinley.
Take another look at it. It doesn't happen very often that you convert this, but boy.
That's what you need, though. You need something coming back usually for that 2-pin in this case, or 3-pin if you play the opposite side. Tom comes very close to those computerized score screens too. But I have to admit that I would match up my Monday night bowling team with any team as far as size. I have
Really?
The Keeler boys. They're pretty good basketball players. One of them is 6'8" or 6'9", and the other is either 6'7" or 6'8". So we usually try to bowl, and then we usually try to go out and take them to the low post. But yeah, Jeff and Mike Keeler, some big boys. Unfortunately, they score more basketball points than pins. Down.
Well, we've talked about this before. I think the number of bowlers that we see here on the program tend to be within a certain height range. You don't see a lot of real tall bowlers that reach this level usually, but
Yeah.
but there are a few.
Ooh, big ball, big strike.
That is a big strike because Tom O'Brien had a markup in the 9th, and he could have carried a 30-pin lead into Game 3 had Brian not done something. Fine 145 middle game for Tom O'Brien. He's at 271.
Almost a double. Geez, I hope I mentioned the right Keelers. There's so many of them. It's Jeff and Mike. They're all big.
I would
Tall.
say if they're that big, you should make sure you mention the right ones.
I'm telling you. They're lambs, though. Jeez.
Brian McKinley for the single, and he's pulled it. It went into the channel. That'll be a 9 fill on the strike and a 9 in the box, and a sudden end to what might have been a promising finish of this middle game. It'll be a 120 for Brian. And Tom O'Brien will carry a 17-pin lead in the match over to Game 3 when we return in a minute. I've only been saying that address for 8 years, and all of a sudden I blanked out on the zip code. Brian McKinley to open Game 3, trailing by 17.
Nice to see the host squirm a little bit. That's nothing, Doug. I have a tough time with my own name some days. Zip code's nothing.
Ooh, Brian almost jumped that over. He was shooting at the 4 and the 10. Nine marks for Brian McKinley so far, 11 for Tom O'Brien.
2 marks more and 17-pin advantage is just about right. I'd explain that last ball that Brian McKinley threw at the end of that second game. That ball did go into the channel and came out and knocked the pin down. It happened so fast that some of you at home probably wondered why he got 1 less on the mark and a 9 for the frame. And that's why. Sometimes it happens so quick you really have to watch it.
Well, that's why I was interested when you started talking last week about the possible new rule of these flattened channels. That could really change,
Yes.
that could really change the game
Absolutely.
a lot.
Absolutely.
Not so much because obviously if you throw the ball in the channel like he did on that particular throw, that rule wouldn't change at all. But when you're talking about pins leaving the plate and coming back, the depth of the channel is very critical.
Well, that's what I think the ruling, or supposedly that's why they wanted put in, is because pins won't be able to stay in the channels. They'll come back onto the plate, which is supposedly increase the scoring. So. But this part of the game won't change. Single pin, you're going to have to hit it. Supposedly they are testing some lanes with those conditions to see what's going to happen. But
Tom O'Brien converts the single pin for the spare. Well, you think about that, and that really could dramatically change the game because, I mean, it's something you don't generally keep track of, but because it's just, it happens so often. But how many times after a first ball particularly does a piece of wood wind up in one of the channels? Like, for instance, what's happening right here with Brian McKinley, the piece of wood in the right channel. Now, that piece of wood in a flattened channel would have come back out and maybe...
Well, that's what I don't understand yet, just what the definition of flat means.
Right,
I don't
flatter or flat. Right. Nice spare for Brian McKinley. With the wood he had left, he converted. 5 fill.
I guess what is interesting to most people listening at home is that a lot of these things go on behind the scenes. It just isn't unlock the door at these bowling centers and have the leagues bowl. There's a lot of thought, and there are associations behind this game, and there's an international group, and a lot of people talking about the game itself.
Oh, big strike for Tom O'Brien.
I would like to alert the NHCBA bowlers that the state tournaments will be coming up shortly. The Flyers entry blanks should be coming out in your nearest NHCBA house very shortly. The adult version of the state tournament is going to be held this year at the Londonderry Bowling Center, and the youth state tournament is going to be held at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. So I'll be looking forward to seeing a lot of the youth bowlers this year. Spare on strike for Tom O'Brien in 3 in a row.
And he's off to a good start, adding to his lead here in Game 3. He's trying to get into the championship match next week against Mike Morgan. We'll see if Brian McKinley can stop him right after these words. Well, Brian McKinley's got a pretty formidable task ahead here.
Already down by 34, and of course that's going to increase because Tomo's already got a mark working for him in the 4th. Wow. Wants to see one of those go. 7 and the 9 pins left. Let's see if this wood's going to be in a favorable position for him. Right there.
Just before the break, you were talking about the various organizations that control the rules and regulations of candlepin bowling. Reminded me of a story that I wanted to tell on the air. Speaking with a friend of mine who's an athletic trainer the other day, and she was telling me she's from Rhode Island, and she was down in the Washington, D.C. area, and of course she grew up with candlepin bowling and so forth, and she lived fairly close to the Boston area, South Shore and so on. And she went down to the Maryland area for a teaching job, and as part of her teaching duties, they wanted her to teach a bowling class. As Brian McKinley picks up the single for the spare in the 6th. And so when she heard this, she said, well, fine, you know, I bowled all my life, no problem. So she went into the bowling center, and of course it was a 10-pin bowling center, and she'd never seen one before.
Oh.
She went on and told me that she taught the class anyway. Nobody ever knew the difference. Taught the class anyway.
Just stick your fingers in the holes. Other than that, it's the same. Score is a little bigger because the ball's bigger. But
Tom O'Brien, another spare. That's 4 in a row, 4 marks in a row. He had a strike mixed in there.
Two, 4, 6 left. Now it's the 4-6.
86 half, Tom O'Brien. When you've got a lead already and you throw an 86 half, in pretty good shape.
Well, it's almost now or never. Brian's working on a spare.
Well, he got the big ball he wanted, although he did not carry the 4-pin. The lead is now 40. Tom O'Brien with 4 boxes to go. There's a spare, nice shot. Getting around the wood, but it's getting to be strike time.
Well, the wrong pin fell. He was hoping the 10-pin would go down. Now he's left with a 7 and the 10. Spray and pray, I guess. Shoot at the 7-pin, or maybe the wood right down the center. Yeah, it's going to try to cap it. Whoa, nice try. The ball went up and over the 10-pin. Got the 7-pin out of there. It didn't carry the 10.
And that's a 9. Ball hit the piece of wood in the channel before jumping out. So Tom O'Brien comes into the final 4 with a large lead. Even if he were to open in these next 2 boxes, he would still have better than a 30-pin lead, unless he has a bad box, which he's going to try and avoid right now. Well, 5.
Oh, you Kurt Gowdied him.
I say so. Wow.
Roger Clemens came out the other day and said that was a great one-liner, talking about the pitching staff of the Red Sox. I'm not going to say too much. They said a lot about Darwin and Young last year, and I Kurt Gowdied them, he says.
Ooh, Tom was trying to play that for the inside spare. Well, 5 and a 7. Boy, I really did it to him, didn't I?
I guess so.
7.
25-pin lead still with 2 boxes to go.
Jeez.
Well, 2, 4, and 10. Of course, the 10-pin's going to be the problem. It's going to be on the 2-pin. Yep,
Got it.
Jumped right over. Good shot.
Still needs some strikes, though, realistically, to have a chance.
But you can't bank on Tom throwing another 5-box. No, through the middle.
Well, Brian knew he had to have something big there.
Well, Owens can seem to win 2 matches in a row.
Well, that's a testament to the quality of this ladder, which we've been talking about for 3 weeks now. 122 for Brian McKinley, a 376, and that means that it's already over.
Right.
Tom O'Brien has already won it. So he can bowl these last 2 for fun, and also to try and get a 400 triple, which he will if he gets 1 mark. And there it is. That's 117 with a ball to come in the 9th. He needs 129 for the 400.
Well,
deserved to get that.
Almost got it.
132 plus a ball, and I don't know what Tom was trying to do that time. Gonna let up on that one a little bit. It'll be a 132, and that's a 3-string total 403 for Tom O'Brien. So he is victorious, and we'll move on to the ladder championship match. That'll be against Mike Morgan next week. We're going to have our bonus ball contest and talk with the bowlers right after these words. And welcome back to Stars and Strikes. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. And before we bring up the bowlers, we said right at the beginning of this series that it was going to be very tough for any of these bowlers to string wins together. And here we are. We've had 3 shows and 3 different winners so far.
That's right. And, well, it's the best bowler that's won that particular day. Joe Ashline was, the first week was just unbelievable. I mean, with the strikes he's throwing. Last week, Brian McKinley threw the big second game, 160. But I don't think he felt comfortable last week or this week, and he kind of struggled. And Tommy was just totally consistent today. Next week, Tommy Morgan comes in. Mike Morgan comes in. Which one is coming in?
Mike is coming
Morgans.
in.
Mike, and so he's going to have to be on top of his game against Mike. So it's going to be tough to win 2 in a row.
Yeah, for Tom, it was kind of a maybe not a spectacular 400, but a very steady 403 series.
That's right. Nothing spectacular. Just say I don't think he missed any legitimate spare leaves and got what he had to get. and he's going to build on that because next week is tough bowler.
All right, we'll have Tom talk about it in just a second, but first of all, let's bring up Brian McKinley. Big round of applause for Brian. Brian will take home third prize money, $250, Brian, and also a runner-up plaque from the N&R Trophy Company, and our congratulations. And, well, last week it happened. This week wasn't quite the same, and also you had a guy throw a 400 at you, so that always makes it tougher.
He bowled well, and I didn't, so that's the name of the game.
So now it's still a little time left. We have two series left in singles and a couple of series left in doubles as well, so perhaps we'll see you again.
Plenty of time. I'll be back.
All right. Thanks very much, Brian. Congratulations. And good bowling. We have the $250 check for Brian for finishing third. That leaves us with two bowlers, Tom O'Brien and Mike Morgan next week. But before we get to that, Tom's got to try and see if we can't get a second winner in a row in our bonus ball contest. We had one last week for $110. I'm getting these Toms and Mikes all confused because, Mike Morgan has the brother.
Because of me. You were fine until you spoke.
Go ahead, Tom. $20 in the jackpot today. Oh, and Tom fires the 9.
I don't ever remember pulling a 9 out. Really? Have you?
I don't think so. You may be right.
No, there is.
No, it's a 6. He tried to turn it over, but a 6 was the guess for Sarah Wojciechowski, if I'm close at all on that pronunciation. Hopefully I am. Sarah from Salem, New Hampshire. Sorry that you didn't win, but you will be receiving a TV50 NHCBA consolation prize. And a big hand for Tom O'Brien now, who steps up with a 403, and boy, you even had a big fire there on the bonus ball. You're really you're on today.
Well, not exactly. It was, like you and Dan said earlier, it was kind of consistent. It wasn't a spectacular 403, and I kind of was on and off. I really wasn't into the game that much. Brian's an outstanding Candlepin bowler, and, any other day of the week, he didn't get the breaks today. Too many 7-10s. He could have jumped all over me and beat me very easily. I was very lucky to win today, and next week I'm looking for the championship. I already got one under the belt.
Well, I want to talk about this because you've been dominating the doubles show, and you finally got in with Phil Clough to the Tournament of Champions a few weeks back. Now you've got a shot to make it into the singles tournament. Now I don't want to give the impression that it's easy to qualify for the show because everyone who's ever tried it knows how difficult it is, but truth be told, this was the first time that you've attempted the singles program this year. Is that right?
That's true.
Yeah.
You have 80 bowlers in the finals, and when I found out the finals were at Londonderry, I don't bowl well at there, and I wasn't even in it till the last string. I threw 177 the last string to give me the 697 to qualify, so I was real happy. But to get on this show, you're bowling against top quality talent. And I was very lucky to win today. And next week, I'm looking forward to the championship match, and it's against an outstanding Candlepin bowler in Mike Morgan. I know him real well, and it should be one humdinger of a match, I hope.
Well, now that you promised it, we'll be watching for it. We're looking forward to it, too. Thanks, Tom. Congratulations. 403, and he's right. He may need another 403 to win next week, or maybe even better than that. As we look at the ladder, we'll set it up for you for next week. The top 2 seeds, as it turns out, Tom O'Brien, number 2, Mike Morgan, number 1.
It should be a great match, and I think we should have Tom with us all the time when we have 7 or 8 minutes left at the end of the show because he can just chew them up like nobody I've ever seen before. It should be a great match, the finals and next Tournament of Champion qualifier.
All right, next week, of course, starting at 12 noon, 2 full hours, championship week here on Stars and Strikes. But don't go away because coming up in just a few minutes, Stars and Strikes doubles, our ladies doubles semifinal. That'll be after a brief break and a look at some of the people who helped bring Stars and Strikes your way here on The Winds. For all of them and for Dan Murphy, I'm Doug Brown. So long from Park Place Lanes.